So you have worked in so many interesting fields: digital marketing, graphic and web design, branding, project management, fashion editorial. What would you say about your working experience? What do you like most about being a freelancer?
It's a great question. What I like most about being a freelancer, and it does have its pros and cons, is that it's very flexible. Obviously, you always have a client that you have to answer to. Clients are always going to be your bread and butter in pretty much any job you have. I do love the flexibility of freelance, and like I said, in the COVID era, that has really been an asset. It also has some cons in the sense that it's not quite as reliable as having a contract or working in an office. So if I can give you a little piece of advice related to that, I would say it's a good idea to always have something kind of going on the side. When you're a student, maybe not when you're in high school if you're super busy, but certainly starting from college, if you can have a little side business going on that you just spend a few hours on every now and then that makes you a little money. I think that's a great skill to have, to learn how to multitask like that and be your own boss, be your own accountant, making all of those decisions. And maybe it will lead you into a very successful career as a freelancer one day. You never know. But I think I've had moments when I've looked across, the last, let's say, 10 years of my career and thought, well, it's a little bit all over the place. And it is. But I think that I've just covered kind of a broad spectrum of skills that are necessary in a lot of different roles. I think if you graduate from high school already knowing what you want to do with your life, that is such a gift. That is an incredible gift. That was not my case. I graduated from high school. I graduated from college with still no clear idea of what I wanted to do. And I was so curious and I wanted to try different things. And I think if that's you, or if that's, of all of the millions of listeners we are going to have to this interview, I think if anyone listening identifies with that, that's okay. It's okay to work across a lot of different types of fields. And I know Steve Jobs had a quote about this, and I'm not going to quote it directly because I don't remember how he said it, but he talks about how in college he followed his curiosity and he, studied in lots of different areas. And one of the classes he took was a typography class or a calligraphy class. And you might think, what does that have to do with someone who's going to have a career in tech? But when he went to design the Apple keyboard, this knowledge that he had gained about letters and about lettering ended up being really formational in how he designed his keyboard. So you just never know how something that you study or something that you delve into or explore a little bit might later come back to inform something huge that you do. I think I went kind of a circular route in my career path in the sense that I always knew that I liked writing, but I don't think I had the confidence in my perspective to think I have something to say that other people would want to read. I didn't have that confidence yet. So I did major in English, so I did a lot of writing, but then I kind of went and tried all these other things. And it's only been now, almost 10 years later, that I've circled back to writing and realized that editorial and writing is really what I love to do the most. I do love these other things that I've done, but of the things that you listed just now, definitely writing is my favorite. And I think it's okay. It's okay that it took me that circular journey to figure out what it is, because I've learned so many other things that are going to give me more interesting things to say when I write. I've had more adventures and more experiences than if I had just gone straight to, a writing PhD and a job in writing. I would have missed out on all these other experiences that are going to lend something to my voice when I write. So all of that to say, if I had to pick one, it's definitely writing. And I just want to encourage you, if that's a question you struggle with, what is my passion? What are my gifts? What are my talents? It's okay if you don't know that yet. You have time to figure it out.
Yes, and I think it was absolutely beautiful that you explored so many different concepts that ultimately influenced the development of your character, because now you have the ability to work in so many diverse fields, and you are basically a very competent person who can manage in so many different situations.
I hope so.
So you went to college at Covenant, right? Why did you choose to pursue an education there? What makes this school an adequate choice for an educational pursuit in English composition and French language?
That's a really good question too, because the college or the university decision is a really big one. And I think especially for high school juniors, 11th graders, it's a really heavy one. It's, it's a big one. It's going to influence, where you live, the people that you meet. It's going to influence a lot about your life. So I'm not saying that to stress you out, just to make sure that everyone goes into that process with the proper respect for what that decision looks like. I made the choice that I made at that time for a few reasons. I knew that I wanted to study English, even if I didn't know what I wanted to do with that yet. And Covenant had a really strong English program. It was also a relatively small school. At the time that I was there, it had 1,200 students, which is pretty small for a university. And I had so loved the small community at Nova that I wanted to continue that into the university atmosphere of just having that opportunity to have small classes, small class sizes, more exposure to the professor, all of that. At that time, my sister was also a student there, and my parents were staying in Macedonia. So I was leaving, going to the States where I didn't have anyone, and I thought, well, maybe it's a good idea to be near family just in case. So I made the decision for a few different reasons, and I did have a wonderful experience there. One thing that I think is important in the decision-making process is to give yourself lots of options. For example, don't only apply to 1 or 2 schools. Apply to a lot of schools and visit them and see what you think about them. And I think it's also very important not to make your college decision out of fear. Don't choose a place because it feels safe. If that school has, something great going for it, go for it. But don't choose it just because you're afraid of going somewhere new, or you're afraid of being in that other country or in that other language, or being somewhere too big or being somewhere too small. Don't let the fear be the guiding factor in that decision-making process. And I think I was slightly motivated by fear when I made my decision. I thought, going back to the States all by myself, I need to have someone nearby. And I don't think I made a wrong choice, because I did have a great time there. I'm still very good friends with professors, with students that I met there. But, cast a wide net and ask yourself some hard questions, be honest with yourself, and maybe talk to a guidance counselor or someone at Nova who can help you narrow down those choices and make a really strong decision.
Thank you for the useful advice.
Yeah.
How did a BA in English composition and French language affect your career path? Was it easier to kind of work in the different fields considering your abilities in English and French?
Yeah, I think it was. I think that no matter what field you work in life, no matter what industry, you will always, always, always need to have writing skills. So I think any chance you get to improve your writing or grow your writing or work with a writing coach or do more reading that's going to improve your writing, absolutely do it. You're going to be not just writing emails, but you might need to write an abstract for a creative project, essays or articles or press releases, whatever the field is, you're definitely going to need to know how to write. So I think anytime you spend working on your writing is time very well spent. So I am happy that I spent those years really focusing on English, which is, mostly writing, literature and writing. And then, what's funny is I didn't use my French directly because I went to Italy. But Italian and French, both being Romance languages, do have a lot of things in common. So I kind of converted all my French into Italian. I think it's still in my brain somewhere. I need to find it and refresh that French. But I think languages also always look good on a resume in this very globalized world that we are living in, where you could work outside of the country that you're from. You might have clients that are from all over the world. So multiple language skills are definitely a plus. And in my experience, most students from Nova have a lot of language skills. So I think polishing those and sharpening those is always going to be something that's good for your career.
Yeah. Where do you envision yourself in the near future? Would you still wish to explore your creative side and work on project management, graphic design, or do you want to see a different side of yourself?
That's also a good question. I'm complimenting you on all of these questions because they're very profound. I think I always thought that I had to choose between, the creative and the intellectual. I always thought you had to make a choice, that it's a binary, right? You can only work in one or the other. And I've actually come to realize that the best work out there unites the two of those things, something artistic and something academic. You bring them together and it's something really powerful. So moving forward, I definitely want to do more writing, since I have come to realize that is really what my passion is writing. At the same time, the graphics and the visuals are something that I really love. I think they're really fun. So I do love when I have an opportunity to do both of those things. And increasingly, I have noticed that any jobs in the editorial sector where you're going to be writing or doing journalism, they regard it as a huge bonus if you also have Photoshop skills or Illustrator skills or any of those visual skills, photography, image post-processing. More and more, that used to be two different figures in an office, and more they want that to be one figure who can do both. So I have come to regard my let's say, competing interests in these two things as actually an asset, putting them together. So I do want to move forward with writing, but anytime I have the opportunity to design something, I'm going to want to do it. So in the last job that I had in Italy, I was working as an editor for a series of fashion magazines. And so that was a lot of writing, a lot of editing, a lot of translation. But then we launched a brand new magazine that we had never launched before. It was a new segment within the fashion industry. And my boss tasked me with doing the creative direction and really the creative design for this new magazine. So creating the brand, creating the editorial layout, the typography, the image treatment, all of this. And it was so much fun. It was such a fun project to work on because I got to do both things. So I hope that moving forward, I'll have more opportunities to engage both of those muscles, right? Like the writing, more intellectual muscle, but also the creative one.
Since you're so in love with writing, would you be releasing a book in a time in the future?
I would love to. I actually had a goal. One of my goals in my 20s was to publish a book before I turned 30. I'm 32 and it hasn't happened yet, but I do have actually an idea that's percolating that I would love to develop. And actually, it is my plot that I have in mind is set in Macedonia. So I think my experience in Macedonia affected me so much and charmed me and inspired me so much that it continues to be the source of a lot of inspiration for me. So I have this book in mind, and I'm not going to tell you any more details about it, but my dream would be if I could take 3 months off and come to Macedonia, go somewhere beautiful like Lake Ohrid, and just sit in a cabin and work on my book. So I do hope that, let's say before I turn 40, I will have a book out there.
We would be very happy to welcome you to Nova when you come to Skopje.
I would love that too. I always try to visit Nova when I come to Skopje. It's such a place that's filled with wonderful memories for me. And I'm still close friends with a lot of the teachers and the administration. So I do always try to sneak in a visit when I'm there. And I hope it's not too much time passes before I can do that again.
So would you like to tell us more about your digital magazine before we end the interview, as I'm sure it is a huge passion of yours? I would love to pay a visit and check it out after the interview. So
yeah, absolutely. I hope you do. And I'm so glad that you asked this question because I do love to talk about it. So in the works for a couple years, I had an idea for a digital magazine. I love magazines. I love editorial. But printing gets really complicated and is really expensive. So I thought digital is the place to start. So actually last year, I formally launched it. It's called Brand of People Magazine, brandofpeoplemagazine.com. And it's a space that so far I'm the only contributor. I'm hoping to grow it in the future. But the idea of it is I wanted a platform where I could talk about creatives to creatives, since that's a community that I really identify with. And I love doing interviews. I absolutely love talking to people about their insights and the lessons that they have learned. And their perspectives. So at Brand of People, I try to interview creatives and then also create content that is geared towards guiding creatives. So it could be how-tos or inspiration or points of reflection that I think are beneficial for creatives. And it's really on a global scale. I love the idea of creating a really inclusive global creative community of culture makers, because culture is being made every day around us. Every day culture is constructed. By creatives, by doers, by actors, not actors in the cinema sense, but people who are acting every day in their passions and working out their talents. And I think that culture is best when it's created mindfully. And almost everything in life lives downstream from culture. Culture happens first, then politics happen, institutions happen, education happens. Culture always happens first. And so I'm really passionate about making sure that that's done in an inclusive and positive way. And that's the mission behind Brand of People. So I would love it if you check it out. If you have ideas for people that I should talk to, I would love to hear those. I have also tried to focus on the Balkan community on Brand of People, because I have met and encountered and worked with so many incredible creatives there, that I think don't always get the attention and the limelight that they deserve for their work. So I've also tried to kind of shine a spotlight on them, since I have access to them. And so you'll find that a lot of interviews there are with Macedonians or Serbians, and I'm working on expanding that. So yeah, absolutely check it out. It's my passion project. It doesn't make me any money. I've only spent money on it at this point, but I do hope to grow it in the future, and I'm applying for some grants to get some startup funding to really help it take off. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about that.
No, it truly sounds like an amazing initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you for creating such beautiful things and bringing them to life.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
So I would like to thank you so much for the interview. It was truly an honor to be able to speak to you and to have you here. Thank you for allowing us to take a valuable portion of your time. It was very nice to meet you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure.
I hope to meet you face to face one day instead of via a screen.
Next time I'm in Skopje, I'm fingers crossed it's going to be 2021 when we're allowed to fly places again. I hope it's soon.
Me too. Hope you'll stay safe with the entire pandemic.
Thank you. You too. Yes, definitely take care out there. It's wild.